Hey guys, Snowflarky's Emos here with an update to my Fire Warrior deck in the TCG here. Fire Warriors is an archetype that I've been quite a big fan of. I really love Blue Flame Swordsman in Legendary Collection, Joey's World, and I've just had this fascination with the fact that Konami decided to make Phoenix Gearfried and just Fire Warriors its straight up own deck. And so it's a deck I've had for a while and been playing. It was actually my first deck profile on here to get over 1,000 views, so thank you everyone for checking out. So figured I'd give an updated list. Been playing with it again recently, so let's look into the cards. First, starting off with our monster cards, I am playing one copy of Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. Cut this down from 2 to 1 in my last build just because, you know, it's kind of a brick in the hand with the way this deck plays in particular, since we're not making too much use of its special summon effect by banishing and equip, and we're mostly getting it off of Gemini Ablation or our monsters that special summon Fire Warriors from the grave. But Immortal Phoenix Gearfried is the big boss monster of the deck. 3,000 attack. You can banish and equip spell from your field or graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. Pretty cool. And then at the start of the damage step, if this card attacks, you can equip a face-up monster on the field to this card. That includes an opponent's card, so that's nice. That's non-targeting, non-destruction removal. And of course, when a monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can send a face-up equip card you control to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So that's pretty cool. You can attack an opponent's monster, equip a card to it, then on a future turn, when your opponent tries to activate a monster effect, you can send that monster to the graveyard and negate the effect. You can even do that with your own cards, which is pretty cool. You know, a way to get things into the graveyard. So overall, just a pretty sick boss monster. 3,000 attack. It gains 500 attack when it's equipped, so that becomes 3,500 with a monster effect negation. Just a pretty solid main deck monster to run as a one-of for the boss. We don't want to see too many of it though, so we, you know, we can pull it out of the deck. So we want to just run one. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Phoenix Gearfried. This is the big Gemini ultra rare monster that deck is built around. So this is a Gemini monster, which if you don't know, a Gemini monster is a monster that counts as a normal monster while in the hand or while on the field or in the graveyard. And if you normal summon it again on a future turn or on the same turn with some support that we have here, you can turn it into an effect monster with an effect. So Phoenix Gearfried's got 2,800 attack power, pretty big. Got a pretty cool Gemini effect. When your opponent activates a spell card, you can select a Gemini monster from your graveyard and special summon it. So that's pretty cool. Pulls out monsters from your graveyard. And of course, if your opponent activates a spell or trap card that specifically targets a monster you control while you have an equipped spell on the field, you can send the equipped card you control to the graveyard to negate it. So that effect doesn't come up as much, mostly using it to special summon and for its big body. But either way, a pretty good card. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Blue Flame Swordsman. Blue Flame Swordsman is a pretty interesting card in this deck. It's an 1,800 attack 4-star monster that we can normal summon, which is pretty cool. It does have this cool battle phase effect that once per turn during either player's battle phase, you can target one other warrior type monster you control, and this card loses 600 attack, and this card gains 600 attack. Pretty useful because when you're attacking, you can get 600 extra points of damage in by timing this ability right. All you got to do is attack with Blue Flame Swordsman first, and then attack with another warrior monster and give that warrior monster 600 attack. Does come up sometimes to end a game quickly, which is pretty nice, but the main reason this card is in the deck is when this card is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, or by battle, you can banish this card from your graveyard to target another fire warrior in the graveyard and special summon it. So that's pretty cool. That means when Blue Flame Swordsman dies, we can banish it, and it can become Immortal Phoenix Gearfried if it's in the grave, or Phoenix Gearfried if it's in the grave, or any of our other monsters. And that makes it a pretty cool card to have. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Sublimation Knight. Sublimation Knight is a nice card for this deck. It's a warrior monster that says if this card is normal or special summon, you can equip 1 fire warrior or 1 Gemini monster from your deck to this card as an equip spell. That can be anything like Phoenix Gearfried or even the Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. And then of course it has an effect that if this card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card, While equipped with a Gemini monster, you can special summon as many of those monsters that were equipped to this from the graveyard. So when this card gets destroyed, if you have Phoenix Gearfried equipped, it just floats into Phoenix Gearfried that gets special summoned from your grave. So that's pretty cool. Usually it makes it so that you want to equip the Gemini monster if you don't have anything in rotation yet. But if you're just looking to pull Immortal Phoenix Gearfried out of the deck, you can't special summon it right away if it gets destroyed. But it's still good to just pull out of the deck and get into the graveyard for our next card that can certainly do it. And that is 3 copies of Evocator Evic. This is a Gemini monster that essentially has the Gemini effect. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target a Fire Warrior monster or 1 Gemini monster in your graveyard except Evocator Evic and special summon it. You can only use this effect of once per turn. So this card is really cool, and one of the main ways that we could constantly recur Fire Warrior type monsters by summoning in it and then removing it off the field, having it come back as a normal monster, and then using its Gemini effect again. This card can bring out Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, it can bring out Phoenix Gearfried, any of these cards. It can even bring out Sublimation Knight if we want to pull more stuff from the deck and the stuff's already on the field. So this is definitely a great card. We want to be using this as much as possible, so I am running 3 of it. And that is it for the monsters. Moving into our spell cards, I am playing 2 copies of Catalyst Field. This is the field spell for Gemini monsters. It says each turn, a level 5 or higher Gemini monster can be normal summoned without tribute, which is pretty sweet. We can just play Phoenix Gearfried from our hand as a normal summon. And of course, during your main phase, you can normal summon a Gemini monster in addition to your normal summon or set. So that's pretty cool. It means we can summon out Evocator Evic and then make it a Gemini monster right away, getting its Gemini effect. Or we could just summon 2 Gemini monsters as normal monsters without their Gemini effects, but that just gets 2 bodies on board. So that is a pretty sweet effect. And if that wasn't enough, it even has one more great effect. You can target a card your opponent controls, banish a Gemini monster you control that is treated as an effect monster, and if you do, destroy until the end of your opponent's turn, and if you do, destroy that card. So this is particularly handy. You can get Phoenix Gearfried's off the field, but this effect's biggest use is with Evocator Evic, because we can Gemini summon Evocator Evic, special summon another Fire Warrior. Now Evic only has 1500 attack, so it might not be the most useful in battle, so we just banish it off the field to destroy an opponent's card, and then at the end of our opponent's turn, this card returns. When it returns, it will be a normal monster, so on our turn, we can then normal summon it, activating its effect once again to special summon another Fire Warrior, and kind of continue that chain. So that's one of the nice things about Catalyst Field, is it allows us to do that. Pretty cool card. Next, I'm playing a copy of Dimmer Synthesis. This card, basically, the only use it has in this deck is it's a searcher for Catalyst Field. It just adds Catalyst Field from our deck to our hand. Has a secondary effect that applies with Chemi Critters, but not very useful in this deck. Next, I'm playing a copy of Reinforcement of the Army. It has a level 4 or lower warrior type monster from our deck, so this card is Sublimation Knight, Blue Flame, or Evocator Evic, just whichever one we are looking for. And that's enough of a reason. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. This deck can't do a lot of extra deck combos, so, you know, Pot of Extravagance seems to fit pretty well here. We banish 3 to 6 of those extra deck cards face down, and we draw a card for every 2 that we did. So basically, 6 random extra deck cards banished face down is a draw 2, which is pretty nice. And, you know, we can't use any other draw effects, but that's not a big deal. Next up, I'm playing 3 Pot of Duality. There's a lot of turns where you can get away with just normal summoning, especially since Catalyst Field works as just a double normal summon. So I feel like Duality is a good consistency tool in here to get to some key cards that I may be looking for. A Floodgate maybe to win the game, or Gemini Ablation if I want to get that card going. Special summon on our opponent's turn. So we just look at the top 3 cards of our deck, pick one, shuffle the rest in exchange for our special summon. Pretty cool. And last, I am playing 1 Card of Demise. This is a light monster deck and heavy on spells and traps. So Card of Demise is nice in here as a one-of, because once things are going and our hand has run out of steam, we'll top decking a Card of Demise, or having Card of Demise to just fill our hand with 3 cards is pretty nice. This card lets us draw until we have 3 cards in our hand. Now we can't special summon, our opponent doesn't take any battle damage, all things that we can play around, and at the end of the turn our entire hand goes to the graveyard. Not a big deal, we'll be getting a lot of spell and trap cards that we can set instead, and if we get stuck with some monsters like Immortal Phoenix Gearfried or something like that in our hand, this can get it into the grave, and that's nice because we want it in the grave to be getting our effects off. So just a nice little card here to refill the back row. And that is it for the spells. Next, we're going to go into our trap cards. I am playing 3 copies of Gemini Ablation. This is a continuous trap card that's really good support for Gemini monsters. It says during the main phase, you can discard a card to activate one of these effects. Either special summon a Gemini monster from your deck as an effect monster. That can be Vocator Evic or Phoenix Gearfried. Or we can tribute a Gemini monster, and if we do, special summon a Fire Warrior type monster from our hand or deck. If the monster we tributed was a Gemini monster treated as an effect monster, we can destroy 1 card. So this card's pretty nice. Can get us started by pulling us out Phoenix Gearfried or Evocator Evic as a Gemini monster, get that effect rolling. Or if we have some Gemini monsters on the field and we want to dig even further into our deck for more monsters, we can turn our Evic and Phoenix Gearfried into a Sublimation Knight, a Blue Flame Swordsman, or importantly, if it's still in the deck, Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. And that's pretty awesome. This card does require you to be done. It does require you to use its effect in the main phase, so that's something you got to keep in mind. And it does require a discard hand, but there's plenty of cards that we might have too many copies of and discard and just pull out another monster. Pretty good card. I love this card. There's a lot of cool things you can do for Geminis with this, and you'll be seeing some more decks from me using Geminis and the power of Gemini Ablation. Next, I'm rocking 3 copies of Summon Limit. Let's be real, we can't make extra deck combos that win the game, so we got to play some floodgates that do. Summon Limit is a very powerful floodgate that just says neither player can special summon more than 2 times per turn. Now, while we do special summon in this deck, at most we can summon like 3 times a turn, so limiting ourselves to 2 is not a big deal, and this will just straight up win a lot of other matchups, especially because when our opponent is limited to 2 summons, the Phoenix Gearfrieds become a lot more of a pain to deal with just because they have high attack and an annoying effect to steal a monster. So overall, pretty good stuff, and it just is a powerful card. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Rivalry of the Warlords. Rivalry of the Warlords just says each player can only control 1 type of monster at a time. Everything we're playing is a warrior type monster, so that of course is not a big deal. And, other decks just get hurt by it. This card can win us the game. I would bump it up to 3, but I'm still playing 1 copy of Gozen Match. This just makes it so that we, both players only control 1 type of attribute. Everything in this deck is also fire. So, sometimes Gozen is better than Rivalry against certain matchups, so I'm splitting the divide. You can go all in on one or split the other. You could play sets of both instead of Summon Limit. Just up to your discretion. Always good to be switching it up and changing it up based on what you're up against. Next, I am playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment just pays half our life points to negate a summon or a spell or trap card. So, protects our setups, protects our floodgates, and that's very important because Solemn Judgment is how our floodgates can stay alive and keep us into victory. Just a great card. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Lost Wind. Since we're not turning off special summoning completely, sometimes I find myself in a position where I like Lost Wind's effect because this card I can activate and negate the effect of a special summon monster and half its attack, which is nice. The halving attack is very nice to get extra damage and maybe get our opponent to just stop summoning like a big wall that we can't deal anything with. And then, of course, while this card's in our graveyard and our opponent special summons something from the extra deck, we can set it, which is pretty cool. Gives it a little recursion, and I like that. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. This is mostly a pick for dueling with my duel group. There's a lot more spell and trap card based decks, and Heavy Storm Duster is just a nice trap card to get rid of those. Any trap card based deck, we target up to 2 spells or traps and destroy them. We cannot conduct our battle phase. That's not a big deal. We usually play this on our opponent's turn, and it just gives us a 2-for-1, which is a nice plus. If nobody you play against in your locals or just in your duel group plays spell and trap cards, you can sub this out for any other good trap card that you see fit. And last, I'm playing 2 copies of Waking the Dragon. This is a very back row heavy deck, so I want to have the punishment ready for the blind MSTers, the blind Twin Twisters, and of course the Lightning Storms or Harpy's Feather Duster. And Waking the Dragon does so if the set card in its owner's control is removed from the field because of an opponent's card effect and is either in the graveyard or banished. Special summon a monster from your deck or extra deck. So that's pretty good. There's a lot of powerful extra deck monsters we can summon, and since we're not really comboing with them, I'm going to cram my extra deck full of them. I'll include the my Waking the Dragon bit at the end of this video here. And yeah, it's a pretty good card. The only thing about it is since we're playing a lot more floodgates that are already face up, I will say this card isn't as great as helping, if our opponent's trying to hit our already face up cards. They're not going to blindly hit Waking the Dragon. And for that reason, I'm considering playing the card Fake Trap instead. Something that may change here, and we'll just, address that when it does. But that is it for the main deck. So that is it for my Immortal Phoenix Gearfried deck profile. Just a very fun deck to have in a casual setting. Don't expect any competitive success out of this. A lot of the power comes from its synergy with the floodgates. Just the unfortunate thing of what we have to do to get some wins. But this deck is good enough that in a casual setting, you can definitely get some wins off it. Summon some cool monsters. They look cool. I really love these cards. So overall, I enjoy this deck quite a bit. Let me know what you think. I'd love to know what you're doing with Fire Warriors. I know Immortal Phoenix Gearfried was a good card to have for the Infernoble deck. So love to talk about it more in the comments. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.